Kingdoms rise and empires crumble, and the knowledge and wisdom from past ages are lost to the foggy ruins of time. But for genuine seekers of truth, one place stands alone on a hill, shining brightly in the darkness. You, dear listener, have reached the hidden Citadel.
Hey, welcome to the Hidden Citadel. I'm Willie Minix. I'm with Greg Kemp, and today is going to be a interesting conversation.
From Z to A.
Oh my gosh! I've been thinking of this for years. I mean, the first publication of anything I wrote about this, I believe, was in. Let me look at the date. 2012, I think, was when I first. No, 2012 in December was when I first published an article about our topic today, and it's not on the Hidden Citadel blog, but it's not really a full article either.
Yeah, but wasn't December 2012 when the world was supposed to end?
Yes, that's true. It
so,
was.
So this is in good company.
It was appropriate for that time. Oh man. So today what we're going to be talking about is kind of some of my theories about the connection between Zoroaster and Daniel. And there were no videos about this because nobody is talking about this.
No.
Except
breaking new ground.
Us.
Yep.
Yeah, we're breaking new ground. But did you get to look over any of my notes at all?
I skimmed a little just because I didn't have much time. Yeah.
Well, I don't even know really where to begin, other than I guess maybe we should give some background. But before all that, guess what I found today in my garden? I got my first fruits. I got my first tomato.
Hey!
And it's October 24th.
It's about time.
I know, man. And it's like, I've been waiting so long to get a tomato. And this is supposed to be like a big beefsteak tomato.
Well,
and this is all I got.
It's humble.
For some reason, my tomatoes, but I thought I'd bring my first fruits into the Citadel and share them around.
Yeah,
it's like...
very Hebraic to take the first fruit and present it. Yeah.
It's like Sukkot's over.
Yeah.
I should have got a tomato before then. But
that's really funny.
I don't know. I was blown away. I walked out there and there it was, and I was like, I had given up on that tomato plant because obviously I planted it in the wrong type of soil or something.
Oh.
It just got really leggy and long, had a couple little leaves on it, and that was it. And I thought there's something wrong about this. I planted it in a bucket, and somebody had told me, oh yeah, you can plant tomatoes in buckets and they'll really grow well. So I thought, well, I'll just see if it does, and I'll never be planting a tomato in a bucket ever again. You're the tomato king. Is that where I went wrong, or was it the dirt in the bucket?
The tomatoes in the bucket are very specific. They're specific plants that you can find. You have to look it up. They'll say this is good for a planter or something like that. Other than that, they thrive with very deep and extended root systems.
I figured that's probably
and so if you don't have that, then you're gonna get it's basically gonna have like its root system above in the stem, but then you're not going to get a lot of fruit.
Makes sense.
Yeah. No, I had 12.5 foot tall plants this year, and I just took down the last of the plants just a couple days ago. I still have probably about 50 tomatoes that are ripening on my back porch.
Wow. Somebody told me that they're still getting tomatoes here, and they were going to cut them all down, and they're like, well, I might wait another couple weeks.
It's a weird season, yeah.
Yeah. It's been, we're almost like I saw it on the news a while back that basically we're supposed to be Zone 7B, but they're really saying we're probably a little bit more like Zone 8A.
Oh wow.
in where we live, and so it's like I have a lemon tree. Well, I have a lemon, a lime, and a orange that I've been growing, and I bring them in the wintertime. But there was a guy down the road. He had a Meyer lemon tree that he had in his front yard for 30 years, and he got lemons off of it all the time.
Wow.
And he said the only thing he would do is if it was going to be a really, really cold week or something in the wintertime, he would wrap a blanket around the base of the tree. And that was all he would ever do, and he had lemons every year. So I'm not, I don't know if I'm brave enough to let my lemons stay out there in the cold, but I mean, I might try it. I do have a little orchard out back. I have 2 apple trees, 2 pear trees, 2 plum trees, a cherry tree, and 2 peach trees. And I used to have some wild cherries in the back, but that was, remember we talked about my tree that fell over on the fence?
Yeah.
That was my wild cherry tree. So I think I'm going to need to get another cherry tree to pollinate with the cherry tree that I've got back there.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of plums this year, and I had a lot of peaches, but my tomatoes that's the first fruit of
That's really funny. I mean, if you're going to have a wild cherry, then you're just going to have to play that funky music, White Boy.
That's right. You
really,
have to.
That's what it boils down to.
It boils down to that.
You can't be on the fence about these things.
No, you can't. And you just have to have funky music. I've been feeling a need for it lately anyway. So that's it. But that's not about Zoroaster.
No, it isn't.
What do you know about Zoroaster? Do you know anything?
Well, just not a whole lot. It's not. It's funny because it's one of those. I guess it's one of those that just it's a religion, I guess, that makes me mad.
Really?
I can't figure it out. Just to know. I mean, is the Theosophical Society? Do they have some Zoroaster roots?
I think they do.
I think they do.
Yeah, the Theosophists.
Theosophists, and then it's what's weird is that what I'm glad we're talking about it because I was talking with there's an old word that nobody really uses anymore called paradisiacal, and it has to do with it comes from the Latin root of paradise.
Okay.
But it actually has an older root than that comes from an old language called Avestan. Have you heard of Avestan? And Avestan is Indo-European, but it's really based on, it's only really called more like Iranian, but it really has roots all the way back to Zoroaster, which is really interesting that the two, the para and the dais, and especially the dais, comes from the Indo.
That's interesting.
Yes, I know. So I'm reading that. I'm like, how weird is this?
What dates are they giving to the time period when that language?
I don't remember.
Is it pre-Farsi? Or did Farsi grow out of that?
I think it is. I think it is pre-Farsi.
Okay, that's interesting. Because before Farsi, there was some language, and then before that was Parthian. Yes. And then before the Parthian, there was basically Persian.
Yeah.
Which was not Farsi, but it was connected somehow to Farsi.
This is in the early, I would say Parthian, because I remember seeing that as a part of it.
That's probably the time period. Well, I know that I can go through my notes here and kind of just go down the line. I just don't know how to well, let's talk about what we know about Zoroastrianism. Yes. What I know about Zoroastrianism is that there was a prophet named Zoroaster. Nobody knows when he lived. There's wide discrepancy. Some say he lived 6,000 years ago. Some say he lived in the 1000 BC. Some say he lived in 600 BC, which is the time of Daniel. Some even say that he came after Daniel.
Some say a third of heaven were kicked out with him.
I don't know. Well, I don't think I'm making the case today that I think Zoroaster was Daniel.
Oh, then he's fine.
Yeah, so we'll get to that.
I won't get mad at him anymore.
But Zoroaster's teachings basically is that there is good versus evil.
Yep.
It's a dualistic system. God has an interesting name.
Zarathustra.
No, that's Zoroaster's other name. Mazda something.
Yeah.
I'll get to it eventually when I get down in my list.
It'd be fun justice if it was Daniel, and then Nietzsche's book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, would
He
really
would be talking
really
about
be
Daniel.
reversing his intent.
That's true.
That's really
That's
funny.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if Nietzsche was Jewish, right?
I don't think so.
Oh no, he
No,
wasn't.
uh-uh.
Oh, maybe I'm confusing him with some other philosopher.
No, I think I'm trying to think.
Because I thought it was a big. I thought the whole thing about Nietzsche and the Übermensch, it was like a irony because Hitler adopted his philosophy, but he was Jewish.
Well, Hitler had like a grandmother or something that was Jewish.
That was Jewish.
Yeah, but Nietzsche's the whole thing with the Übermensch, the Overman. This is very Germanic, but I thought his whole thing was the. I don't remember anything about him being Jewish. I've never heard that.
Well,
he might be. I don't know. I've just never heard that before.
I don't know. It's been so long since I've delved into Nietzsche.
Well, it's interesting too because, like, I think that there was some. If they're both German, he and Wagner, he had like an obsession with Wagner. But
really?
I think he had an obsession with Wagner.
Well, so
his
did
art.
Elmer Fudd. So,
yeah, he did.
He had to kill the wabbit.
Kill the wabbit.
Kill the wabbit.
Well, and in the lore of the Kemp history, it is proposed by one of my aunts that I had a great aunt named Ida Walker, who was a relative of Richard Wagner. So there's some way, some way that we're connected to Richard Wagner genetically.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I studied Wagner because, my first degree is in music, so we studied Wagner in school, but I don't remember anything about him other than he was a grumpy guy.
And his the something along whatever it is very much parallel to Lord of the Rings.
Like it is, yeah. I do know about that.
Yeah,
I know a lot about the ring cycle.
Yeah,
I just don't know about his life. You know, that's what I meant. But he was one of the guys that was around the time of the Grimm's brothers, and so all of the idea of trying to preserve the stories of fairy tales and stuff. I was also just reading an article about Tolkien and Lewis and how they didn't like Disney because they didn't like how Disney corrupted the fairy stories and took away basically the darker part that warns you, the things that you have to kind of ruminate on and chew on, and they lightened it all up.
Yeah.
And made it very simple.
Yeah.
And Tolkien basically said that he didn't want Disney having anything to do with any of his works ever.
Softening the spirit world is making them Melohim. So
Melohim, that's it.
So the stoners call it. Man, I saw Melohim today. I was so inspired. I was kind of inspired.
So what I know about Zoroaster is that he started his part of his religious thing is connected with fire. That fire is somehow sacred, and that you get a lot of their worship is built around standing around a fire source.
Okay.
Also the men are all required to wear a small cap, kind of in the way that Jewish people wear a yarmulke. But it also kind of looks like the hats that the Muslims wear too. So I mean, I'm not going to take too much of that, but I kind of wonder if the Muslims get that from Judaism and early Christianity, maybe anyway.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of original stuff coming out of Islam.
It was all getting mixed and mashed, back in that time period. The other thing that we probably need to address at some point is the Ascidi religion, or the Yasidi religion, which is a kind of a counterpoint to Zoroastrianism,
Hmm.
which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And Zoroastrianism has like a devil character. It has a end time apocalypse, just like the Bible kind of does. It has a second coming of Zoroaster. You know, it's like, but there are a lot of things about Zoroastrianism that people like to point to and say, oh, look, Jesus was based on Zoroaster.
Right. I've heard that. Yeah.
Here's the problem with that, and I'll just debunk that like immediately.
Get them.
The writings of Zoroaster, which was called the Avesta, which isn't that interesting because that's like the language that you're mentioning.
So that's yeah, and it was the region. Yeah. So that's why I think where the Zoroaster. That's what I was saying. It's linked to them.
Yeah, it has to be somehow. So anyway,
Well, it's called
these
Avestan, and
Avestic,
yeah.
yeah. So the Avesta is their Bible, basically,
Yeah.
and the Avesta was not codified or fully written until 1000 A.D., and it wasn't even begun to be written until about 300 A.D. And so all of the claims that are in the Avesta, they make claims of things that happened in the far distant past, kind of in the way that the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita do with Krishna, where they were written in a much later state, but then they project back and they say, well, this happened at 6000 BC or 2000 BC or whatever, but they're like thousands of years removed from the events that they're describing. Now, I'm not going to say that that's necessarily wrong, because people write history books today about historical events that happened in the past, and it doesn't negate the validity of those books. But I do think that in the old days, a lot of times it was real common, if you wanted to legitimize your religious philosophies, to go ahead and say, well, these philosophies aren't mine. They actually came from a much older source. And we see that in the Dead Sea Scrolls with the pseudepigraphia.
Yep.
So the pseudepigraphia is a lot of these extra writings that people would put the name of some prophet on and say, oh yeah, this is the book of Enoch, is a good example. We don't necessarily know. Of course, I think here in the Citadel, we do believe Enoch wrote it, but other people, like our beloved Dr. Heiser, did not believe that Enoch wrote the book
Moment
of
of
Enoch.
silence. Yeah.
Yes. We kind of disagree on that a little bit with him, but he knows better now.
Yeah.
Like he knows exactly who wrote the book of Enoch, but we can't ask him anymore to find out. So it's kind of a sad situation. But my thinking on the book of Enoch is that if Enoch was taken away, and the entirety of the book of Enoch is about what happened after he was, or when he was taken away, and then when he was at some point brought back, then it's like, okay, well, that means that at some point Enoch was brought back. I mean, if that book is true, you know, and is worth anything, well, what that means is, to me, is like, when you're taken away into space, which he describes all sorts of weird stuff that he sees in space, you're traveling at a different time, a different time rate. And we know that when you're traveling at the speed of light, that time is different here on Earth, that things pass while you're not aging. So it's like, to me, let's say God had his angels go get Enoch and bring him up to heaven, and they're traveling through the heavens at the speed of light. In the Bible, when Moses wrote, he would have said, well, Enoch was taken and nobody knows whatever happened to him.
Right.
And then 1,000 years later, when they're writing the Dead Sea Scrolls, if Enoch was brought back to Earth, it would make sense that he would have come back, maybe a couple thousand years after he had been taken away. And so he writes out maybe what happened to him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying I did
Plausible.
share that idea with Dr. Heiser one time in an email, and he was like, "That's an interesting theory." That's all he had to say about that. But I'm like, we it could be, we don't know. But with some of these, like Zoroastrianism, when it says that he lived around 6,000 years ago, it's like, well, that doesn't, we can't prove that at all. We can't even prove that he was a person.
Correct.
Because what I found interesting about it is Zoroaster is actually a title, and it basically means the keeper of the camels, which is kind of it's synonymous really with a
cigarette machine.
Yeah, right. And I live in Camel City, so that's it.
Winston-Salem.
That's it. It's the it is a title of the highest official in the court, pretty much, because he had charge over allowing whether camels were going to be used for different purposes or not. So, what was Daniel? He was the highest official.
He was
in the court. They both lived pretty much around the only real academic study of if Zoroaster was a person dates him to the time of Daniel, around 600 BC.
Where are we in the Jewish calendar right now? Like, what number are we on? Are we in the 6,000s yet?
No, we're still in the late 5,000s.
Well, because I'm just thinking, like, if he's approximately 6,000, when did the Jewish calendar start? Who started
that's
it?
the thing. I think that Daniel had a lot to do with this stuff.
I do too.
Because back to our Mazzaroth episode, it's like, where did the Jews get all of these names? Where do they get these prophecies? Who was a prophet in the Bible that actually was concerned with astronomy?
Well, but
none of them.
Where was
really?
Right, none of them. But then you have
except Daniel.
Except for Daniel, but it's like Daniel's prophecies really, I felt like, got things in motion in a way. Like, it was this is the guy, this is the turning point in history. Yep. Now we're pointing to the Messiah very specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only other prophet, quote unquote, that I could think of in the Bible that would be concerned with astronomy would be maybe Noah, because Noah is a shipwright and he's sailing a boat, and it's like, it would make sense that he would know something about navigating.
Yeah.
And how do you navigate? You navigate with the stars. So,
well,
maybe
I just feel like Daniel begat the countdown, and
I think so.
Which would make sense that the calendar would start around him too, because it's important. Yeah. It's important to start measuring the days, the Ancient of Days, the 1,000 days, 1,000 years. It's important at that point to go, all right, now we're going to track it, because now things are going to be important, that when 400 years pass or 700 or 600, whatever it is, something happens. And you're going to start seeing the intervals be very prophetic to what has been said in the past, to what's occurring now, and then what will occur later. You know what I mean?
And the fact that Daniel also mentions that he was interested in the time, because it says, I was reading the book of Jeremiah, or the scroll what Jeremiah had written, and it's like, well, obvious, because I wanted to understand when the captivity was going to end. And it's like, okay, well, obviously Daniel was sitting there trying to do the math to say, well, I believed, and I think, I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago. Trevor was reading something in Jeremiah, and I was like, well, wait a minute. If Jeremiah is giving this prophecy, and he's there when all these people are deported to Babylon, well, there's a really good chance that Daniel knew Jeremiah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, maybe Daniel was the one that was given a copy of Jeremiah's scroll. And back to the pseudepigraphia for just a second. When I was in school, I remember specifically one of my teachers saying, well, we think that the book of Daniel is actually pseudepigraphical too, that somebody wrote it later, and then Daniel, they just slapped the name Daniel on it. Okay, we know that that's not true now because one of the oldest Dead Sea Scrolls
Yeah.
is the book of
It's
Daniel
Daniel.
that dates right
Yeah.
to the time of Daniel.
That doesn't
which,
work. Yeah.
as I said before, that could be Daniel's handwriting that's on that scroll that we're looking at. We don't know for sure, but it's like, I would think that if Daniel was that important of a figure and he wrote something down, that maybe they would preserve it and somebody in the group would keep it safe. The thing that we have to know about the old text before the Babylonian captivity is a lot of what they had, that I'm sure people like Daniel were in charge of keeping some of that stuff safe, but I imagine a lot of their documents were destroyed when they burned down the temple.
Yep.
But if they ever find the Copper Scroll artifacts, I really would be surprised if they don't find a lot of ancient texts, sealed in with those artifacts that they hid away before the Babylonian exile.
Yeah.
And so there's probably, I think there are 4 caves that I suspect that someday they will be discovered. The 3 caves that are mentioned in the Copper Scroll, and then I also think the burial place of King Solomon is probably a 4th cave somewhere. That it's like Solomon's tomb, I don't think they really know exactly where it is, and I think that it's the kind of place that would have been, there had to be some pretty important stuff buried with Solomon, I would think.
Yeah, it's
that
like,
would just
it's kind of mentioned in Proverbs. It's like, well, where is the place of wisdom?
Yeah, it's a hidden citadel for a reason.
Where? It's like Seinfeld. Where's the place of wisdom? Where is it? Where's the place of understanding? Well, it's buried with Solomon. Where's that? I don't know what that is.
It's near Engedi.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right.
So Daniel and Zoroaster both had some interesting connections.
Yeah.
Daniel's writings and basically the Hebrew monotheistic worldview predates Zoroastrian codification.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people like to say, well, Zoroaster was the first monotheist. Well,
He was
number
not.
one, I would like to point to Akhenaten.
Yep.
Was predated by everybody's account, predated Zoroaster. And Akhenaten was definitely a monotheist.
Yep.
And I think Akhenaten, I think in the movie, the documentary Patterns of Evidence, with, I think the guy's name is Tim Mahoney or something like that.
Yeah.
He shows he convinced me that Akhenaten was a result of the Exodus. That when the Exodus happened, that Akhenaten was like, man, if we're going to keep on the side of this God that's more powerful than all of our gods, we all need to start worshiping him. Yeah. And his misunderstanding of him being the son, is understandable for somebody who is trying to piece together what happened after Moses and everybody else left.
Right.
I mean, you gotta think, well, nobody is around to teach Akhenaten, and he's just like, well, I think those Hebrews worship the son of,
they're onto something.
They're onto something. We better come up with a religion to appease him, or we're all going to die. And there are a lot of people out there that like to say that Akhenaten was an alien or had a elongated skull and all this stuff.
That's right.
We could get in that in another episode. But I would say that you've got Moses and you got Abraham before Moses.
Yeah.
So you got Abraham, you've got Akhenaten, and those guys predate Zoroaster.
They do.
By far. So Zoroaster was not the first monotheist.
No.
And all of the faithful Hebrews were all monotheists.
Yep.
All the way up. In fact, you could almost say that Zoroaster's not a monotheist because his concept of good versus evil, of cosmic dualism,
right. I know.
almost a two-god system.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, so I would almost argue that Zoroastrianism is like tangentially monotheistic.
Yeah.
If they believe that good, and I don't know enough about their religion to know the definitive answer of this, but I think their idea is that it's a cosmic dualism that's always going to be back and forth, you know, between good and evil, but ultimately there will be a final, you know, catastrophe or something,
Yeah.
and good will win. But then I think it starts back over again.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like, I don't really know that
It's
you could
strange.
call that monotheism.
It's weird because it's kind of, well, it's kind of Mormon in a way,
Yeah.
but because Mormonism will have the dual the brotherhood of the Jesus and Lucifer. Do things start over? Yes, they do. They start with another. You know, you become a god.
Yeah, when you become a god, then
When
you
become a
start
god,
your own thing.
You start, yeah, you know, your own planet. You have your own everything. So
There is a similarity in that.
Yeah, and then you end up having like, but I think I still think psychologically when those who are kind of inspired to just start their own religion, they all fall into the same. There's basic ingredients to a man-made religion, you know, and so it doesn't surprise me if Zoroastrianism, if
That's where
the religion
Zorro
part comes
was
from.
actually from Austria and
Yeah.
not from Mexico.
Not from Mexico.
Or California
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
wherever.
Yeah.
Zoroastrianism.
Where was his blade from? San Francisco?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Do you know that Zorro actually was based off of an Irish warrior that went to fight with against Santa Anna in California?
Really?
Yeah, I read an article about it. It's really interesting.
His last name was Callahan. Zorro Callahan.
Yeah, Zorro Callahan.
Zorro Grady.
Anyway, what were you? Well, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I was just saying that there's basic ingredients, and they all, you know, one of the things.
Yeah, why don't you tell us that? Give us a rundown of what
I'm
basic
just saying,
ingredients.
Well, basic ingredients is usually in your suffering. Keep in mind what you are going to receive after, and in doing so, you have to kind of come up with something that is kind of, it has a very humanistic, materialistic gain to it. And so it never makes any sense with you know, omnipotence and omniscience and who God is, and you know, the reconciliation with the eternal creator. Never makes any sense with that. There's usually a reasoning out that you're like, well, you're not going to have God, but you're going to have these two other things, and you know, you lose track of, again, the eternal and the omniscience, the extreme, and you make things more accessible. That's why when you say Lucifer and Jesus are the same, it's kind of like allowing you to think through, well, in our struggle, it's not really a struggle because Lucifer and Jesus are the same. It's a way of creating a false reasoning, a mellowing out of your responsibility and the discipline
There's
it
that
takes.
Elohim again.
Elohim. The Elohim comes in and says, it's like Cheech and Chong coming, whoa, stay in the white van full of... What translation are you using? The THC. I like it.
I think you're right. I think there's two things that seem to start religions. There's either the trying to figure out the problem of suffering, or trying to explain some sort of, well, there's that. That would be a cult, maybe, to control people. But then I think there are these people that they have some sort of, I don't know if it's a vision or some sort of cosmic revelation, or they have a bad trip or something, and then they're trying to say, okay, this is what I've learned from my experience, and then people follow around and elevate them into a god.
Right.
Like Buddha. I don't
Apotheosis.
think Buddha...
Yeah,
I don't think he ever set out to start a new religion.
No.
You know, it's just the people around him. It's like, I don't know that Calvin really wanted to start a new, you know, doctrine, but the people around him really ran with it, you know? Yeah. And I think with Zoroaster, I don't know that he existed. You know, it's like there really isn't a lot of good evidence and I think that people created a character, and I think a lot of the characteristics that they made were based off of Daniel. You
Yeah.
know, he was a leader that was really high up in the court.
Yeah.
We're not sure which court Zoroaster was, but Daniel served the he served Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians, and then when the Babylonians fell, he served the Persians, and from what I understand, the Chaldeans were adopted into the Persian Empire, which
Yes.
later became the Parthian Empire, and then those same Chaldean school ended up becoming the Magi school
Yep.
later on, and then later the Magi's became Zoroastrian.
Yeah.
You know, many years later, and so I think that it is likely that a lot of the stuff that Daniel taught, because you got to think about this. Daniel, first of all, saved their entire group from getting killed by Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes.
When he interpreted Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Then a big chunk of the Chaldeans got thrown into the lion's den when Darius was the king. This is after it became the Persian Empire.
Yep.
And Darius was tricked into throwing Daniel into the lion's den, and when he survived, he reversed the order and threw the other guys in.
Can we talk about that for a second? Just
yeah, let's talk about that.
I think that's the kind of the natural, not the natural order of things, but what happened in the den of lions. And by the way, that's what I saw. A theologian once said it wasn't the lion's den because that could be empty. It was a den of lions. It was a den of lions, which means they were there
because they were full. Yeah,
they were full
of lions.
But it's so fascinating because Daniel says, I think it's the angel of the Lord, an angel closed their mouths. Now you think, so what? What does that really do? Because they have claws. They still have the intent. But anytime that's used throughout Scripture, if the skies are closed up, the ground is closed up, the womb is closed up. Anytime that's closed, it's inhibited, made impotent. And so it has no power whatsoever. When the skies cannot produce rain, when the ground cannot produce, when the womb cannot produce,
it's like when you put a muzzle on a dog, the dog's not likely to attack.
But supernaturally, when God says, "I'm going to close up the sky, I'm going to close up the ground," that's a powerful thing. That's beyond just like a natural. Okay, you're inhibited. You are completely you are not allowed. It's impossible for you to produce what you were intending to produce, like womb, sky, ground, right? So he's taking the lion and saying you are not to be able to produce the fear and the rage and the destruction that you. And what's wild is once in Scripture, when the skies are released from and are opened up, they storm. When the ground is opened up, it produces. When the womb is opened up, it produces. So when they were let go, it's almost like
they were
kinetic
into action.
Well, the kinetic energy that if you just think of, you're holding something, and the kinetic energy is multiplying rapidly, but not able to do anything. You let that go. They can go into the air and tear something apart before it hits the ground, and that's what happened.
The part that reminded me of the Daniel with the lions more than anything I've ever seen is that part in Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, where Darth Maul is cut off from Obi-Wan Kenobi
and he's
pacing back and forth. Yeah, it's like when I first saw that, I was like, dude, that's like Daniel with the lions. It's like they're just like, we want to eat you, but they can't. You know.
Yeah, but it says that once they were kind of allowed to let go, they did something almost supernatural. They jumped into the air and ripped the guys apart in the air. So, I mean, you do see lions jumping up and doing that when they hold, like they'll hang like a carcass from a tree.
Yeah,
like
that's
15
true.
feet in the air, and they're going up, and you see, wow, that is some power.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Here's what I thought it was, though. My theory was I went to the Mystic Aquarium in the Norwalk Aquarium in Connecticut.
Okay.
And they have a shark tank, and they had this guy in the shark tank, and these huge, like 15-foot sharks are just swimming by him. And they had another guy who had like a zapper with him in the water, something with him. I mean, it couldn't have been a zapper. He had something just in case.
Well, maybe, yeah.
And I said, and they said, "Do you have any questions for the guy in the tank?" And I was like, "Why are they not attacking him?"
Eating him. Yeah.
And they said, "Because they overfeed him."
Well,
And
there
so,
you go.
in doing so, in overfeeding them, they're not hungry anymore.
True.
Because they're essentially they're sated,
Yep.
or satiated, whatever you want to. So what I thought was when God closed their mouths, He essentially said, "You have enough. You don't need to go after it." And essentially, closing in such a way like the sharks were, that you are fulfilled with what I'm giving you, so you will not go after him. You have no hunger for him. Essentially, that's what I thought happened.
Well,
who knows? It might be.
Well, maybe. But the other thing too is sharks and lions. Are they known? I don't think they're known for being territorial, so they don't normally attack.
Mm.
Like, you can walk into a group of lions if they're not hungry. Like, that's how lion tamers and stuff do at the zoo.
Yeah.
Whereas there are some animals, like, say, a rattlesnake. It may not bite you because it's hungry. It may bite you just because
scared.
You're in its territory
Yeah.
and it's afraid, So it's like, I would say that, if a lion was a territorial animal or a shark was, they would still attack anyway.
Well, and there's there's a part of cats too that if they're interested, I mean, you've seen those videos of the lion that will just, it finds a baby deer, it doesn't eat it, just keeps it around.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting though is that the Bible describes the lions in total, because first of all, they are in the den. They're not allowed to get to. It tells what they do in the air. It tells how they. But there's a little sentence at the end of the Daniel event that says, "And there were no scratches or marks on him," meaning
Yes,
that
that's interesting.
even when they were inhibited, they didn't even go play with him like a cat would. They didn't see him moving. They didn't find him as something they need to keep close. They left him alone completely, which is what a lion may still do that stuff.
Yeah.
And yet they were completely inhibited from doing that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm getting ready. I just finished reading, I think it's Daniel 3 in the Septuagint.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to what the Septuagint has to say about the Daniel and the Lion's Den.
Den of Lions.
And the Den of Lions. It's hard. It's hard to redo that one.
I know.
I'm really interested in what it has to say about that, because so far everything has been slightly different. The Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego chapter is way longer in the Septuagint than it is in the, there's a whole section of Shadrach, Azariah, whichever one that one
Azariah,
was.
yeah.
He sings this entire song praising God that they're not, when they're getting thrown into the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't, which this goes back to the Zoroastrian thing. He sings this whole long song about the power of God over the fire, mm-hmm. and how they're not destroyed by the flames and all this stuff. And then there's a big section where they're brought back out, and Nebuchadnezzar makes a big deal about, the flame shot up 70 cubits into the air as the angel came down. It was very obvious that the angel came. In the book of Daniel in the Masoretic, we read, and you're like, oh, it looks like there might be another man in the fire. In the Septuagint, you see the angel coming down, this flame, into the fire, and descends in to be with the three Hebrew children that were thrown in, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously there was a big deal because that flame was so prominent and people could see it. And so in Zoroastrianism, fire is a really, really big deal. And it's like, well, where did fire become important? I think at that moment it could have been.
Well, I think
where
it's always
happened.
It does have prominence in a lot of the works in essentially in the supernatural works. Certainly,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were saved from within, which is different from saved from without, which is Daniel was saved from without because it was externally. Mm-hmm. That he was inhibited, but they were actually tied up, which is so fascinating because, like, what why was he tying them up with the strongest guys? Because it's almost like, I know someone's going to try to save you, but I'm going to try to prevent that. And so,
Yeah.
and not only were they untied, they were allowed to move freely and have
Yeah.
fellowship and freedom
And that's the only thing that actually burned
yeah.
in the fire was their bonds
Was
that
right.
tied them up.
So they're saved from within in the fire. But then what is the description of the heavenly host surrounding Gehazi and Elisha? A chariot of fire. So the fire
That's
by
true.
itself is not.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, why would fire be important to Zoroastrianism?
Oh, well, I'm just thinking, what I'm thinking is just in concluding that a deity or something of the supernatural, I think fire seems to have some commonality.
That's true.
Yeah.
And even the idea that jinn are beings of smokeless fire and all that kind of stuff. But
the burning bush.
Yeah, that's true. In my thinking of this whole thing about, like, well, retroactively figuring out where fire became important to Zoroaster, it's like, well, if Zoroaster was Daniel, and this is my thinking, Daniel's not mentioned at all in the chapter about the flaming fiery furnace.
No.
And the question is, well, where was he? Because it says that everybody was brought in from around the empire. Was he having a sick day or something? And my thinking is this. If Daniel, if Daniel was the highest official in the kingdom, which he was at that point, and his basically lieutenants were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, then he probably was sent off, and the empire was massive. So it's like, if everybody else was supposed to come in, it may have been his job to go around and tell everybody, hey, the king wants you back in Babylon. So he's probably traveling at that point, and he probably hadn't made it back himself, or he would have probably been thrown in the fire too. And so afterwards, when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are telling this story, and here's where why I mentioned about the angel coming down in the flame that shot up 70 cubits, which that's a heck of a big flame.
Wow.
And the angel came down into it, and Nebuchadnezzar sees this angel. And what's interesting is the way the Septuagint reads it is a little different than the Masoretic. The Masoretic says the furnace was so hot that the guards died when they went to throw in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Which is fascinating, because they were preserved.
But that's not how it happened in the Septuagint. In the Septuagint, they were fine up until the point when the angel came and the big explosion out of the middle of the furnace happened.
Wow.
And that's what killed them, was the arrival of the angel is what fried those guys as they were. So it was like they threw them in and they turned around to go, and then bam, they got cooked.
The guys.
They got fried.
Because Septuagint is a different translation than most places. Everybody else says whatever. They say fried the guys.
They say fried the guys.
What does this translate to? Oh, it translates to
fried the guys.
Fried the guys.
Yeah, there it is. That's it.
Ancient texts are interesting.
That's cool. Fried the guys.
Fried the guys.
That's where the term French fries came in.
Fried the Normandies.
Anyway, so what happened in that one is this flame shoots up, and an angel basically rides the flame down, in other words. And when the flame comes down, it shoots out the sides, and that's what killed the guards. Yeah. And at that point, that's when Nebuchadnezzar realizes, wait a minute, there's a fourth man in the fire with those guys, and they're all walking around, get them out of there.
Yeah.
And so they pull them out, and that's when Nebuchadnezzar orders that they will be raised up higher than what their position was that Daniel gave to them. And then now they're rulers of different provinces. So that's why we don't hear about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego anymore after that, because they've all been sent off to different provinces to rule for Nebuchadnezzar. Mm-hmm. And but I say all that basically to say this. if those guys were telling Daniel after the fact, man, you should have seen it. We're standing there looking up in this massive flame
Yeah.
going up 70 cubits into the air, and then down comes an angel,
Yeah.
into the pit with
Yeah.
us. And I would say that that would have made a big impression on Daniel, and he would have been telling that story.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he cared enough to write it down.
Yeah.
But he probably told, oh man, let me tell you about this time that God saved my friends.
Yeah.
And he probably never tired of telling that story. And so it's like, well, that would be a real strong connection of where fire became so important to if Daniel was Zoroaster, that would make sense.
Was Daniel Belteshazzar? Is that his name?
He was,
Okay.
and I think in a previous video I was confusing Belshazzar and Belteshazzar.
Okay.
Because Belshazzar was the son of the last king of Babylon, and he was basically the prince regent that ended up ruling when
Right.
that guy went off to go start his own religion, which is a really or find God or the gods or something, and in his absence, that's when the kingdom fell. I want to talk about other things that Zoroastrianism has in common. They got the cosmic dualism. They believe in resurrection. They believe in a final judgment at the end of days.
Yeah.
And they have an angelology that is very similar to Jewish angelology. So it's kind of like, well, a lot of people that assume that Zoroastrianism was the religion, like there's a group of scholars out there that will tell you Zoroastrianism was the religion of the Persian Empire. And it's like, well, that's not what the Bible says, and that's not what the ancient Persians themselves say in their writings. In the ancient Persian writings, they were polytheistic.
Yeah.
And so were the Babylonians, and they had all these other gods, and it's like, if Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic religion, then you couldn't have that be true and have the Persian Empire being polytheistic and that being the state religion. It's not compatible. So my thing is, probably if Zoroaster is a title, which we know that it probably was, and it's the title of the highest official in the land, and we know that the highest official in the land was Daniel, then Daniel probably had the title, like, we would say, okay, the highest official in the land in the military is what? Somebody that's on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, so he would probably be a general or an admiral or something. But in their society, they would say, okay, well, the highest official is the Zoroaster. And who's the Zoroaster? Oh, well, Daniel's the Zoroaster. Belteshazzar is the Zoroaster. So I think that really Zoroaster should be the Zoroaster and not just the name of a person.
Right. Sounds like a wizard more than anything.
It does sound like a wizard.
Yeah.
Like, what was Gandalf's one name that was like Mithrandir?
Oh, Mithrandil, or
something like that.
Mithrandil.
Yeah. He could be a Zoroaster.
Yeah.
Anyway, doesn't that kind of make some sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I mean, I'm still going back to the Daniel being really the, it feels like numbers and time really became to matter. Like it's like he flipped the switch. I mean, even the stuff that's on the wall, the mini techie, whatever that was.
Mini Tekel Parson or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was like the meaning of that was time and time and a half. That.
Yep.
That you're gonna, and it's all right. It's all a countdown. It's all like this is the timeline for this kind of thing. It's almost like, I remember Misler talking about when the 6 days of creation ended. And it was on the seventh day. It wasn't really a time of rest. It was imposing a repose. That which was eternal, was being created, was now going to be put in motion to then just be on its own and not need to be created anymore. Yeah. But then when more finite, when sin made things more finite and kind of imposed death and everything, then things began to there's almost a new timeline that started that at that point.
Oh,
That
that makes sense.
you know, and
Yeah.
then it's almost like when Daniel, at the time of Daniel, now he's saying, guess what? This is where now the clock is ticking officially.
Yes.
From now on, you're going to be watching things as they unwind, as they.
And he pretty much laid out some pretty specific times.
Yeah,
Daniel did.
he did.
But that goes too with, like, in Daniel, he's very concerned with time and stars, and he connects stars almost to like divine beings or destinies. And in Zoroastrianism, they also connect, this idea that stars and divine beings are connected to the stars too. And so that's what leads me to the idea that we talked about in the Mazzaroth, that if Daniel and the Chaldeans were all star watchers, and he's naming these things like the branch and the one who shall come and the river of life and all these different things that we talked about in the Mazzaroth episodes, then it makes perfect sense that you would have another religion that branched off of it would kind of be concerned with those things too. So it just seems to me that, and the thing is, like, I'm not, I don't want a Zoroastrian to look at this and say, well, you're bashing my religion.
No.
I'm not bashing your religion. I'm
trying to understand
basically
it.
saying
Yeah.
that I think your religion stemmed from the same place that the Second Temple religion basically came from. I think Second Temple Judaism is very much tied to the teachings of Daniel and Ezra and all that, and I think that you take Ezra out of it, and then you got this, what would be Zoroastrianism going the other direction, again, kind of like Akhenaten made up a new religion based off of what he witnessed happening with the Jewish people. I think the Zoroastrianism is what the Persian Empire, the Persians eventually came up with after looking at what God was doing with the Jewish people there. Because when God does something, it's not just for the person that he does it for. A lot of times it's for other people looking on.
Yeah.
And when people don't quite understand what God's doing, they're going to try to figure out a way to process that information and say, okay, this was what makes sense to me.
Yep.
But the other interesting thing about this whole area is not only did Zoroastrianism grow out of this, but we also have the Yazidi or the Yazidi religion that is in that area too. And it predates the Yazidi religion, also goes back to about the time of Daniel. And it's also a dualistic religion, but what's different about and it's also concerned with fire. It also has, in the Yazidi religion, they have their high god is a evil god that they have to appease because they can't connect with the main god. So there's a dualistic religion, and the high god that they worship, the evil one, is a golden peacock-winged snake that is a flying serpent.
Wow.
And that's their main god. And so basically you have, it's almost like it's the inverse of Zoroastrianism. So it's like, I think what I would like to propose is that God did something in Daniel and through the Jewish people during Daniel's time. He started passing on wisdom and knowledge, and then somewhere along the line, the Magi or the Maguses took his information, and it ended up becoming the Zoroastrianism eventually, but then at one point it was the religion of the Parthian Empire.
Yep.
But the common people probably took the same information that they got, which wouldn't have been a full picture, and they ended up coming up with the Yazidi religion.
Yes.
And I think both of those religions stemmed from Daniel and his life. And that's just kind of my thinking on it. And I'm sure that I don't have enough. I probably couldn't write a scholarly paper to defend this necessarily, but I do think that there were probably people like Heiser out there that know enough of the old text that they probably could come up with a really good scholarly approach
Yeah.
to take this kind of idea and run with it. You
Huff.
know?
We got to mention this to
Yeah,
Huff.
Wes Huff could do that.
Yeah,
That would be
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But basically, that's kind of where I'm at with this whole thing, and I have so much more research that I did this week that I just can't compile it all into this whole thing. But I do briefly want to talk about the Magi, because
Yes.
when this video comes out, it will be in December, and so it'll be a good topic for Christmas,
We Three Kings.
because everybody wants to know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
And the Magi were basically the what the Chaldeans became. So they were the astrologers and the soothsayers and the wise men of the Parthian Empire.
Yep.
And so my old pastor Lynn Allen wrote a book called What the Wise Men Knew.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting book, and he kind of talks about how he thinks that there was a life debt or a blood debt that the Chaldeans owed to Daniel,
Wow.
and it carried all the way through, and he prophesied, and he was like, if you want to fulfill my life debt, when the Messiah comes, you need to come and serve him.
Wow.
And so he thinks that that's why the wise men came,
Yeah.
and they were basically honoring that life debt that they owed to Daniel. Now, my whole thing is, I don't know that I necessarily 100% agree with that, because it was the same Chaldeans that tried to throw Daniel into the den of lions. And so it's like, I don't know that that's necessarily true. But the other argument that people say is the Chaldeans actually, the Parthian Empire had just lost their king. And so when they came to pay homage to Jesus, they actually knew that there was a prophesied king that Daniel had prophesied was coming. They pretty much knew exactly when he was coming, because not only did they have the prophecies that Daniel or whoever had taken into Babylon with them, or copies of it, they also had probably the star map figured out that Daniel probably knew exactly when the Messiah was coming, and where. And so they came to Bethlehem to go ask, where in, they knew it was in Judea. They probably didn't know the city, but they were like, where's this king? They looked it up. Oh, he's in Bethlehem. And so they go to Bethlehem, and they basically were saying, are you a candidate to be the emperor of the Parthian Empire? And it's like, I think that's a pretty interesting line of thinking too, and I think that would be kind of a fun one.
It's really
research.
fun. I mean, I feel like there's a skit in there somewhere. Like, it feels like Monty Python. Like,
let's check the box to do this.
Are you the one who's going to rule over us? Are you the one? Someday this will all be yours. What, the curtains?
The curtains. Yeah, the first one fell over into the swamp, and then we built another, and it burned down and fell into the swamp. But the third one stood, and that's the one you're going to inherit, lad.
Oh my gosh. It's funny, like, because, when you really got to go through Daniel, and you go through, like, the interpretations, the understanding what, it does say that all its interpretation comes from God, and yet Daniel's speaking in interpretations all the time. So it's like the power of the Spirit, within Daniel. Even for Daniel to see these, these angelic beings, or even if it's Jesus, like the burnished bronze, and he's falling down in front of them, and Daniel 10 is just wild, where it's just Daniel 10:19 just sticks with me, because Daniel's down on the ground going, I can't even withstand what this being is.
Yeah.
And the being says, first peace, like, meaning whatever you're experiencing in stress and anxiety, be gone. Then he says, be strong, which means get up. It means have the strength to be in my presence. And then, meaning wholly be strong, generally be strong. But then he says, be strong now, which is so wild. If you just think of the times that you are when you are overwhelmed with something, your heart is beating, you're like something is just so taking you that you go to Daniel 10:19, and it is like, look for that peace, look for the strength, but also look for the promise that you can be strong now, which means
Mm-hmm.
eliminate whatever that is and listen. Be careful to listen right now, and that gives you psychologically a strength that you can generally reason and get. There's a lot of therapies, dialectic behavior therapy, cognitive behavior. You can go, all right, generally I can get through this,
Mm-hmm.
but when the offer is that right now in this moment you can have the strength, that is
Mm-hmm.
that is wild. It is crazy
Yeah.
because it's not only a truth, but it's a promise and it's a reality, and that's what you
Yeah.
really need. Yeah,
Well, and the other thing too is a lot of times when you're in a traumatic event, your brain blocks it out.
yeah,
But
yeah.
Daniel's brain imprinted it because he wrote it
He wrote it
down
down. Yeah, and he
and
did
remembered
some
everything.
amazing details. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, we're given just so much. I mean, even when the Prince of Persia comes in, or not Prince of
Yeah.
Persia, when the angel is it the Prince of Persia?
Yeah, that he had to fight against the
Yeah,
Prince of
Persia,
Persia.
that whole thing, that
Yeah.
glimpse, we get into something we've never seen before and never get to see ever again. But like,
True.
whoa! I mean, that is
Yeah.
like what Gehazi saw. It's like
Yep.
open his eyes, like, oh, that's happening all the time. That's
Yeah.
happening all the time. We just get to. I think just our human nature, we get a glimpse of what it is to know it's there, but we don't get enough
Yeah.
of it to say let's turn it into a distraction or a religion or something that will take
Well,
us
and
away from
think
God,
about this.
because we're susceptible to that.
We often talk about the effect that the Greek Empire had on everybody when it came through.
Yeah,
But what we don't ever talk about is what the other empires, how they affected the Greek Empire. And
yeah,
sometimes when you read about the description of Gabriel,
yeah,
the way that Daniel describes it, it
yeah,
makes me wonder if that's where the Greeks got the idea for Hermes.
yeah,
And it's like it's possible that, and I got to do research on this, but again, it might be another one of those things that the Greeks hadn't really developed that at that time period yet, and whenever Alexander came through, maybe they adopted that and it became part of their religion and pantheon as well. I don't
yeah,
know, that's just speculation,
yeah,
but it seems to me that it's definitely possible.
yeah,
There's so much more we could talk about this, but I feel like without really having more information about the nuts and bolts of these other religions, we can't really totally connect the dots. But somebody out there, I think part of our job at the Hidden Citadel is we throw the ideas out, and maybe somebody else can get thinking about it and go do more research and connect the dots that we're just noticing.
yeah.
You know, but the big question then is it bad form to have a pedal called the Zoroaster pedal? Would that be gauche?
When your cadence changes, it's like here it comes. Because the question is, he's joshing for Scott.
I'm joshing for Scott. Yeah.
Scott free.
No,
The Zoroaster
I
pedal.
think
Well,
a
it'd have to have.
Zoroaster pedal. Just the name Zoroaster is a pretty cool
It does
name.
sound cool. Yeah, it sounds like
Yeah.
it's got to have some heat. It's got to have fire to it.
Something, yeah.
It's got to have
fire.
It's got to have a dualism to it. It's got to have right.
It has to be
Yeah.
a red pedal with flames coming
Yeah,
up. I
it
mean,
really
if
does.
we're gonna tip our hat to a world religion,
Yeah.
we should at least put something to help them out.
Yeah.
Right. But a Zoroaster pedal would be cool. It would have to be like a real sizzly distortion.
Yeah.
I think, or overdrive or something.
It has to have dual features at some point too, I think.
Yeah, there it would have to, like maybe overdrive and delay
Yeah.
or something. That would be kind of a cool.
Yeah.
Ooh, what about this? What if the overdrive is in the delay? So like whenever you play it, it's kind of clean, and whatever is
Comes
after
later
it,
is distorted.
yeah, but
That's
what's later
crazy.
is distorted and
Eclipse,
and
yeah.
grungy. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever heard a pedal do that.
So it's like
and that, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and it just fades in the distortion. I think that would be a cool pedal.
Way cool.
So there you go, Josh. See if you can run with that one. I don't think Josh cares. I have sent videos to them, but I've never heard back whether they actually care
they
about
will
our
care.
pitches or
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
One day they
Oh,
will.
yes, they will.
The shorts are actually doing very well. So who knows? Maybe
Yeah.
they'll get their attention. I don't have the Zoroaster article written, but if you want to read other interesting articles, you can go to hiddencitadel4.wordpress.com
Yep.
and you can read them. I am trying to get some other time to design some other t-shirts, but I haven't gotten any new t-shirts up. But you can go get a lot of cool t-shirts at redbubble.com and get those. I have been designing a lot of new thumbnails for our short videos on Instagram and on YouTube. So you can kind of sign up and you can get our short videos sent, your way too, and you can check those out. But if you do go buy a t-shirt or a hat or a bag or a mug or something like that at redbubble.com, there are a lot of different options that you can choose from on the Hidden Citadel line. And then we have Watermocks Press has put out an awful lot of books over the years. We have our TOB book, which is a novel.
Crazy Horse. Yep.
Yeah, it's like a Stephen King sized novel.
I call it political science fiction.
I think that's a good apt description of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a cliffhanger, and one day we'll probably we were talking about possibly making a graphic novel as kind of like as like the follow-up to it, because I think the whole thing can kind of be wrapped up pretty quick, and then maybe later we could maybe go into another one. But that was the whole process of writing that book was enormous.
It's fun.
That it's like, unless I can full-time dedicate myself to writing a book again, that was a lot of work.
Oh, it's like
it was fun.
700 pages. It's like,
yeah, it's a big book, but it's fun. It's a really good read.
Just to give the listeners just the picture of how this happened. Willie and I used to meet at this McDonald's in Highland, whatever. What's it called? Where were you?
No, it wasn't Highland Falls. We met across. I'm pretty sure it was
West Point.
No, there was another little town near Stony Point or somewhere, wasn't it?
I don't know, but
there's a town that starts with a T, and it's not Terrytown, but some little town over there had a McDonald's, and we would meet there.
So we'd meet there. So we just decided, hey, let's encourage each other in writing. And so, because he was writing one thing, I was writing another. And we were sitting one morning at the McDonald's, and I said, hey, what about this idea? And you go, well, you'd have to do this. And I said, what about and I said, well, let's write it together. But what's funny is these people watched us Saturday after Saturday, like 7 a.m. or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we had 2 laptops facing each other, like we were playing
a game or something.
A game of a Battleship. So look, we were playing Battleship, and we just sit there for whatever hours,
a long time,
raising our cholesterol and on McDonald's food. But that's how we wrote it, and it was 600 pages later. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and then after, we were almost finished by the time that I moved back to Indiana, and then I spent 2 years, I think, editing it and getting it.
Oh man,
because we didn't write it consecutively either. It was like we'd write a chunk here and a chunk here and a chunk there, and then it was like, well, how does this fit in as a puzzle? And that to me was that's what was the hard part. And it's like, man, I would really need to not be doing anything else, so that I can focus on doing that again, because it was a lot of work.
I remember going through the whole and just making sure everything flowed.
When you're writing a short story, it's one of those things where you're like, you don't have to be worried about loose ends that don't tie up or things that are inconsistent in this part. But in this book, we would have to go back. Oh wait, this was
Did
mentioned
I say
here.
this?
Let's
You guys-
find that
yeah.
again and know, does that match up
Yeah.
with what we're saying now? And then we're like, oh no, it doesn't match up, so we got to either retroactively fix this part,
Yeah.
or that. And that goes back to what we're talking about, Zoroastrianism. I think there was retroactive editing
Oh,
that went
definitely.
on with that,
Oh, yeah.
because that's how it was worked when we were working on the novel,
Yeah,
you know. And but it was a labor of love, and I think that I really enjoyed it when it was
so
all
much
said
fun.
and done.
Yeah.
And it really ties in like some of the, I mean, it kind of ties in some of the weird conspiracy stuff about, well, what's really going on with the government? You know, what is our tax dollars really going to put to buy and pay for? And I think that's all in there. So it's a cool book.
Yeah.
The Parable of the Talons, though, is a much easier read.
Sure is.
And Scott Harshbarger did the art. We met Scott
Amazing.
Harshbarger when we had originally decided to start a magazine called the Christian Sci-Fi Journal.
Online.
And Scott sent us lots of really good art for that. I think we did like 5. I was actually, the other day, I was thinking, why did we not keep going with that? I remember there was like a reason.
I don't know.
But I don't remember why why we stopped doing that. But we did get some interesting interviews and stuff. Those don't exist anymore, but those were fun little magazines. But then we've got the Encyclopedia of Weird Crap Volume 1. I've been working on the Encyclopedia of Weird Crap Volume 2 so that you guys can enjoy that. It'll probably be out next year. At this point, but probably sometime early next year it'll be ready to go. I have the Mandolin Dead Man's Tuning books, Hard Rain. I've got Jesus Son of God. Fairies is a short collection of stories. I've got the lyrics and music. And then there's the Parafable that just came out recently.
Crazy good.
It's really good. And then we've got your band just came out with a new song too.
Yeah,
The Brothers Graham. And
Proximity.
Proximity.
And it'll be, by the time you get this, it'll be already out for a month and a half.
Yeah, so go to Amazon, buy the MP3. Again, if you care about your artists that you really, really like, you should always buy their MP3.
Yeah.
Because number one, you don't know when one of these big companies is going to get sued and shut down, like Spotify or whatever, and then you lose all your music.
Yeah.
Or number two, Spotify doesn't pay their artists much, so it's like you're really helping your artist out when you buy their MP3. So go ahead and do that. And then also you could check out my band, the Fantastic Flying Frogs. And they're cool. And you know, I need to make a Brothers Graham like slideshow. So as you get enough of your thumbnails done, let me have them, and then I'll make a Brothers Graham or like some pictures of you guys, or whatever, and I'll make a little slide of that too. So until next time, everybody, stay in the Citadel because
night is coming.
The watchman replies, morning is coming, but night will soon return.